Hi there, and welcome back to another Marvel Crisis Protocol painting tutorial. Today we are going to be painting up Shang-Chi. I've been meaning to get this video out for quite some time, and seeing as I'm going through a bit of a Defenders phase right now, it seemed like a good time to do it. The model has had a Zenithal Prime with black and grey surface primers from Vallejo, so let's get started. I'm going to start by base coating the eyes with white, and you can use any white for this. Make sure you use a fine tip brush and just take your time. Don't worry if it's not perfect, as we can tidy this up in the next step. With some Abaddon black, create a thin outline around the outside of the eye. Use the black to trim back any excess white to create an eye shape you are happy with. If you accidentally get black onto the white part of the eye, just take some more white and carefully correct the mistake. When you are happy with the shape of the eyes, take some more black and carefully add a vertical line from the top to the bottom of each eye. This will provide an effective pupil. If you make any mistakes, take some white and carefully correct it like I did here. To base coat his skin, use a 2:1 mix of Barbarian Flesh from the Army Painter and XV88. I decided to add the XV88 to create a slightly tanned skin tone. We're going to be adding this colour to all of our subsequent highlight colours as well. For his top, I started by darkening down 2 parts Mephiston Red with 1 part Abaddon Black to create a slightly darker initial base coat. Use some Black Legion contrast paint to base coat his hair. Take your time with this and ensure you keep to the hair texture, as this paint can get away from you and you want to avoid getting any onto his skin. I realised that I missed his gloves when painting the red parts of the model, so if you haven't already, use that same Mephiston Red and Abaddon Black mix to paint these as well. Take some green skin by the Army Painter and Abaddon Black and create a 2:1 mix similar to what we made for the red areas of the model. Use this to base coat his trousers and sash. Now take some pure Mephiston Red and layer this over all the visible folds and raised areas of the top, making sure to leave that slightly darkened red in the recess areas. Finally, take some Evil Sun Scarlet and add an additional highlight, paying particular attention to all of the most prominent wrinkles and folds in the clothing. Make sure you cover a smaller surface area here so that you don't completely cover the previous Mephiston Red highlights. We want to end up with a nice gradient between the 3 red tones. Next I am going to add a shade to the skin. For this I am going to use a 2:1 mix of Guilliman Flesh and Contrast Medium. Use some Iron Warriors to paint his nunchucks. I did decide to paint the handles black later on, so you mainly just want to focus on the chain here, unless you want to paint them all silver. There is an awful lot of detail over Shang-Chi's top, a lot of gold embroidery with black and white trim. So to tackle this, we're going to start by base coating all of these areas with an undercoat of Abaddon Black. I noticed when doing the gold on the next step that I had missed some black trim areas, so there are a few shots here of gold already applied to the model. With that black undercoat applied, we can take some Retributor armour and use this to paint in all the gold embroidery along with his arm rings, wrist gauntlets and the soles of his boots. Make sure when it comes to the embroidery on his top and the wrist gauntlets that you still leave a black outline. Just take your time when it comes to these parts, but if you do make any mistakes, just reapply some Abaddon Black to recreate those outlines. Finally, take some white and use this to paint in all the white details. Again, remember to leave a black outline at the edges. If in doubt, use the box art for reference. Apply a wash of Reichland Flesh shade to all of the gold details. This is to provide a little bit of extra shading, especially to the dragon scale-like embroidery on the top. Apply a wash of Poxwalker to his trousers and sash. We now want to do a bit of relayering. After applying our Guilliman Flesh to the skin, we want to build back up to that original skin tone, while leaving the shade in the recesses. Use the same Barbarian Flesh and XV88 mix we started with to relayer all of the raised areas, such as all the defined muscles and facial features. We then want to do the same with his trousers and his sash by relayering the same green skin and Abaddon black, leaving the Poxwalker shade in all the recesses and folds. Take some pure green skin and apply a highlight to all of the raised areas and folds. Try to cover a smaller surface area than you did in the relayering step. This is to start to create a nice gradient. Apply a final highlight of Eternal Hunt to all of the most prominently raised areas and folds of his trousers and sash. Once again, we want to cover an even smaller surface area than we did with the green skin highlight. This is to make sure that we have a really nice gradient from darkest to lightest. Next we are going to focus on the stone dragon that Shang-Chi is standing on. I started off with a base coat of Stegodon Scale Green. I personally wanted to go for a jade effect here, but you can go for any stone colour you like. Next I added a dry brush of Cabalite Green. Then another dry brush, but this time with Sotek Green. To add some more contrast and shading to the jade stone, I added a wash of Colia Green shade. Once the shade is dry, take some Sotek Green again and add another dry brush layer to the stone. Finally, add another dry brush of Temple Guard Blue. We now want to add our final highlights to the skin. Start by creating a 2:1 mix of ruby skin from the Army Painter and XV88. Apply this highlight to all of the raised areas of his muscles and facial features. Just like in the previous highlighting stages, we want to ensure that we leave some of the original skin tone colour visible. For the final highlights, take some pure barbarian flesh and pick out all of the most prominent musculature and facial features. I realised that I had completely forgotten to give Shang-Chi some eyebrows. A lot of this area is covered by his hair, but with some Abaddon Black, carefully pick out where the eyebrows would show through the hairline. To highlight all of the gold areas, start by relayering with Retributor armour, but making sure to leave the Reichland flesh shade in the recesses. This is particularly important where the dragon scale embroidery is concerned, as we really want the individual scales to stand out. Finally, add an extreme highlight of Liberator Gold to all of the prominent areas where the light would reflect, paying particular attention to the individual scales. Apply a non-oil wash to the nunchucks we painted with Iron Warriors earlier on. Once the non-oil is dry, pick out the individual chain links with Ironbreaker. To apply some much needed texture to Shang-Chi's hair, create a glaze mix of Incubi Darkness and Lamia Medium. You're looking for a very thinned down mixture, probably a 6:2 ratio. You don't want your brush to be too wet here, so very lightly dab off the excess and make sure your brush still has a very fine point. Once you have done this, carefully apply small textured lines to the smooth part of his head, but also the raised areas around the hairline. I decided that I didn't want the handles and the chain of the nunchucks to be silver. As a result, I painted over these with Abaddon Black. I then applied a very select highlight of Stormhost Silver to the individual chain links. To finish off the nunchucks, I added a small final highlight to the black handles using Eshin Grey. Again, if you decided not to go with the black handle option, you can ignore this step as well. Finally, paint the base of the model any colour you choose. And here is the final result. I had a great time painting this model, and he is also very fun on the tabletop as well. As always, I hope you have found this video helpful. If so, please do give it a like, and if you want to see more tutorials like this in the future, please click that subscribe button. If there's a particular MCP model you want to see painted, then let me know in the comments and I will do my best to bring it to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time.